Hello and welcome back. In today's video I'm gonna show you how to create a really simple yet beautiful graffiti effect, and for that I'm gonna choose the text tool, and of course you could use a PNG of a logo or whatever you want. I'm just gonna use a simple text, and I'm gonna use this font, Time Going, and let's just increase the size a little bit. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna type in Rashid, which is my name, by the way. I'm gonna increase the size a little bit. Okay, something like this. Looking good. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna duplicate this layer, then I'm gonna turn it off, just in case I wanted to make an edit. I'm gonna rasterize this type, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a layer mask, and the reason for that is I wanna create some areas where paint would splatter. As you know, with graffiti, sometimes the bottle is closer to the wall and it gives off the spray at some areas, and in some areas you take it further back and the line is straighter. I don't know if you get what I mean, but it's basically how graffiti bottles behave, paint bottles. What I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna try to mimic that behavior by simply pressing Alt and clicking on the layer mask. And for that I'm gonna go to filter, then let's see, render, then cloud, just something like this, and I'm gonna try to increase the contrast a little bit. I'm gonna explain why in a minute. Just gonna increase the contrast a little bit more like this. Okay, looking good. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press Alt and click on the layer mask once again, and you can see that it's not looking too great, but it's not a problem. What I'm gonna do right now is actually I'm gonna invert this text and turn it into white, and I'm gonna do the same for the background and turn it to black. Looking good. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually make sure that the background of this text at the same layer is black as well. And to do that I'm gonna go to Edit, then Fill, and instead of Normal I'm gonna choose Behind. And if you wanna learn a little bit more about how these blending modes behave, make sure to follow the link in the description, and it's gonna be a link to my course where I'm gonna explain a lot of the basics of Photoshop thoroughly, and it's really worth it. Okay, so I'm gonna choose the foreground color, which is black in our case, and let's press OK. And now if we turn this off, you can see that it's just a simple white text on a black background. Anyway, let's disable the layer mask anyway, because this is not why we need it. And we're gonna create some blur. We're gonna go to blur, then I believe blur gallery, then I'm gonna go to blur, then lens blur, and for the source, as you can see, instead of none, if we just leave it at none, it's gonna become like this. And if we try to create the paint splatters, it's gonna have the same amount of paint in all of the areas, and we don't want that. Instead we're gonna use a layer mask, and now the white areas and black areas are gonna create different contrast for some areas. Some areas are gonna become blurry, which are the areas that are gonna contain the most paint splatter, and some areas are gonna remain the same, and that is what we want. So let's just press OK, and as you can see it's already looking much more realistic. And so now let's just delete the layer mask, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually change the blending mode to dissolve, and it's not gonna look good right now since we don't have a layer mask right yet. So we're gonna press Ctrl A, Ctrl C to copy this text, and we're gonna basically press Alt and click on the layer mask, then press Ctrl V, and we're gonna use the same text as the layer mask. There you go. Now you can see that The dissolve mode uses the transparency as a way to make some areas pixelated. If we zoom in, you're gonna see that, and you can see that it's already looking good. But we're gonna use that same concept to add a little bit more of pixelation to the rest of the text by simply lowering the opacity a little bit. Let's zoom back and see. Okay, it's looking good. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna simply turn the text, we're gonna turn the layer itself, all of the layer, into a white background. So we're gonna use the fill option again, and now instead of behind we're gonna use normal. Actually, let's go back and let's choose a white color first. Now let's go back to edit, fill, then choose normal and press OK. Now let's adjust the opacity, see what works the best. Okay, looking good. Now once again we're gonna duplicate this layer. Let's leave this one in the background. As for this one, we're gonna apply the layer mask. As for this one, we're gonna apply the layer mask, just like this. This way we have a layer to work with. Actually, I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna add it to a group, and I'm gonna flatten that group or rasterize it itself. This way we have a normal blending mode instead of the dissolve. Now let's add a little bit of blur, just to get rid of that pixelation, just a tiny bit. I actually already love the result, but to make it look a little bit better, we could drag in some text effects. We're gonna drag in some, but to make it a little bit better, we're gonna drag in some paint effects, like this one. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make it smaller a little bit. You can't see it right now since it's black. And we're gonna press Ctrl, then click on the layer. We're gonna turn it off, and we're gonna go and add a solid color. This way we could add some color that we like. For example, this yellowish orange. Okay, I really like it, so let's convert it to a smart object. And let's try to place it in here. I really like how this looks. Maybe we could increase the size a little bit. Okay, now what we could do is we could group all of these, and let's name this text. Actually misspelled text, so let's fix that once more. Perfect. Now what we could do is we could add a background, and for that I have this picture of a brick wall to go with the theme of graffiti. And let's increase the size a little bit more, and let's press enter. And let's see, maybe we could add a levels adjustment layer or a curves, of course. We're gonna make the wall a little bit darker, something like this. Now I'm gonna use an eraser with a white background and an opacity of 25, and I'm gonna start creating some bright areas. Nothing too crazy, just to not leave the wall flat. I just don't want to leave the wall flat, so I'm just gonna create some bright areas just like this. And now what we could do is maybe we could drag this up a little bit, or maybe we could make the text itself a little bit bigger. And we're gonna double click this layer, and we're gonna use the blend diff. Let's drag this a little bit to the right. Okay, let's separate these two triangles and drag this one to the right, this one to the left. Let's press OK and zoom in. Okay, looking good. Maybe we could use the screen blending mode. Let's zoom back and see before and after. It actually looks a little bit more realistic, but leaving it in a normal blending option makes it pop out more and more legible. I'm gonna leave it up to you to choose the blending mode that you prefer. And this basically was a simple way to create graffiti or a graffiti effect for your text and your logos. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to press like, subscribe and click on the bell icon. And if you want to learn more about Photoshop, make sure to follow the link in the description. That's gonna redirect you to my course. I believe it's one of the best out there, so I'm gonna leave it up to you to choose. So take care and see you in the upcoming video.